Hey, what's up, everybody? It looks like crypto's taking a big dump today, and we talked about the possibility of, coming down in that C wave, right? And when we look at Bitcoin, either the whole idea here was that this is a one, two, three, four, five, and then we're gonna get an A, B, C, and then we're gonna go. So that was idea. That was one of the ideas. The other idea is that this is one, two, all of this is three, right? And then we had four here, and then we were going to get five. Now, is it still possible we can get five? Yes, but the way this came down, it looks a little bit impulsive. It looks a little bit bearish to me. So it could be a wave two, right? You got a wave one, a three-way pullback, wave two. Let's continue higher, four, five, right? And then you would have a completed five-wave move. So let's zoom in a little bit more. I mean, you do, but the problem is, right, it did look impulsive, but it's only a three-wave move. So we have three down, we have three up, and it looks like we have three down, but it could turn into five, right? So let's see if we can get a proper ABC and then continue higher. So we probably have more downside in the meantime. But if we can hold support in here, right, and start building a base, maybe rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulations, we start going sideways, then yeah, maybe we can pump to the upside. Because when you look at something like, for example, XRP, I mean, you're right at the end, you're right at the edge of the cliff, pretty much, right? And we talked about this as well. Like, for example, I'll flip the chart right side up. You can see you have a big impulse and then a three-way pullback. Your impulse and you're flagging out. And now look, we're breaking that flag, right? But when we flip that upside down or right side up, you can see, right, this is a bear flag, and now we're starting to head to the downside. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if XRP is right at the end, it's basically teetering on the edge of this here, right? Just like we were up here. So if we break it to the downside, what we want is we want a fast wave down and then come back quickly. That's what we want. So this could be kind of like a shoulder. We're probably getting the head, and then we get another shoulder later on. That's just an example of what we would want to see in the event Bitcoin breaks to the downside. Because if we put Bitcoin on the screen side by side, look at this. If I can pull it up. So Bitcoin really didn't even correct, really. I mean, it did a little bit, but it's still like, I mean, here's your big wave right here, and we're still hanging out at the top, right? So if Bitcoin decides to have a proper ABC and continues to come down, well, if XRP, that's what I was saying, like the altcoins are fragile at certain times, right? Doesn't mean they're weak all around. It just means that this specific time of the price action is weak because it needs an expansion phase, right? And we're basically, when Bitcoin makes an attempt, it takes a lot of correcting and then recycling, and then it kind of puts more down pressure on the alt. So what I'm saying is, if Bitcoin has to come down, right? So you take this whole wave, cut it in half. Let's say we get to the 618 down here, right? Well, if that's the case and XRP is right here, what do you think is going to happen? If we had this big move just because of this little move, well, what happens if we get a big move in Bitcoin? We could get an even major move in XRP is what I'm trying to say. I don't think so, but I think we're almost finished here. I mean, if you look, really, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? But if we get a three-way pullback and we get rejected and we keep going down, then I'm going to think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So It's a little challenging at the moment, but it looks like, I mean, this looks very bearish, very bearish. It's got to prove to me that it's bullish. And the only way it's going to do that is if it finishes the 5 waves, and then we have a 5-wave impulse off the low, and then we start flagging out. That could look like upside to me. Very, very possible that that could happen. But it has to prove it to me. And I think, are we going to break down today, tomorrow, next week? Look, I think, let's look at another chart. For example, let's go to THETA. Now, when we look at THETA, you know, we've been talking about what? The idea that this has to fill in a proper base, right? So meaning what? You have 3 to the upside, and then you come down, and then you flag out, and then you come down again. So 3 to the upside, 3 to the downside, and then what comes next? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, right? So that Wyckoff, remember we talked about Wyckoff a lot. So I think this is what we're doing here. We could get a spring, we could get a little bit of a roundabout, right? Or we could just get a regular A, B, C, right? I mean, we talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's your A. You have a 3-wave move to the upside. There's your B. And now it looks like 1, 2, maybe we get 3, 4, and 5 for C. You know, and then continue higher, right? And it makes more sense because it would build in this base, right? Because to me, I mean, look where THETA's at. It's right at the end here. I mean, if you look here, we're right at the end. Now, what if that's wrong? What if we don't have to come down? Then what is the count? Well, then what I would say is, I would say that we need to find support here, number 1. And I would say we need a 5-wave move. Do we have a 5-wave move? I mean, let's look at the 1-hour chart. We technically, okay, so we sort of dropped in and we were bottlenecking. Boom, 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 boom. You hit the low, have a 3-way pullback, and then you have sort of this diagonal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it kind of looks like, I don't think much more downside is coming. I think we're got to get a bounce here. If I turn on the RSI, look at that. We got bullish divergence here on the RSI. I think we need a bounce to the upside. Now, the thing is when we get that bounce, how does it bounce? That's the key. Does it bounce correctively? Does it bounce? Does it struggle? Does it look impulsive? And then after it bounces, how does it correct? Right? Let's say we get a 5-way move. Does it correct impulsively? Does it correct correctively? I mean, does it, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like you have to pay attention. So what we could have is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, technically the wave could be finished, right? So what do we need? A retracement back to the upside, a 3-wave retracement or an impulse into the retrace, right? That's looking at it through the bullish lens. I'm not saying that's necessarily what has to happen, because again, if Bitcoin continues to go down in a C wave, then I would expect the altcoins as well. However, when you look at this, you could say that this is a 3-wave move here, right? So if this is our B wave, which I don't think it is, right? So we have 5 down, right? And then we have 3 up, and then we have 3 down. What comes next? Maybe we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. And what we then have is a more complex B wave. So A, B, C. This is your B wave. So we have 5 down, 3 up, and then we get we have 3 up, then we get 5 back down, right? So how would that look? For example, right? B waves can also always get more complex. So right here we have 3, and then we have 3, and then we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is your B wave, and this would be A, And then from here, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for C, and then we go higher. That is also a real big possibility. How do we know which one's going to play? Well, how it really is based on how this wave finishes and how it reacts. Does it react a certain way? That's why you got to hit subscribe so we can figure this out as it comes. Because not too many people are going to talk about exactly how the next wave is looking in regards to what we were just saying. So we'll see. Let's look at another chart. I mean, it could be dollar cost averaging, right? I mean, if you look at this as a range, you're buying the bottom, you're selling the top. Accumulation, distribution. So technically, this is a spot to dollar cost average, right? If we start breaking this to the downside, then I would imagine this is finished, right? Once we get that three-wave shape, that's what I'm looking for, a three-wave shape. We don't have it yet. But there's always going to be some type of shenanigans that make it a little bit deceiving. Let's go to THETA, for example. So THETA, again, you're right at support here, right? So the problem with THETA is it's actually coming from a higher spot, right? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have a three-wave move, but it looks like you need A, B, C, right? That's kind of what it looks like to me. But if this is 3 up, and this is 1, 2, 3 down, then maybe we can get 5 up, right? So it's a stretch, I know, but you can see the doji right there. You can see, you know, this, we're holding support in here, and you can see that we actually wicked. This is good. Here's the close. We wicked right below the close, and we got bought right back up. So as long as we close above this, that's good, and even above that, which we didn't. But you can see that this monster candle to the downside, very bearish look. But look, what do we see? You see a wave there, and then you see a three-wave there, and another wave there. So, for example, let me do this. So here's your green, and then here's your blue. You see what I mean? So this is connecting to this, right? So what do you think? If that's the trend, what comes next? Well, you would think something like this, right? Or something like that, back to the upside. So if this wave needs a retracement, and then let's say we come up in 3, then we can say, okay, if the way it comes up, does it look like it needs to come down, or did it impulse to the upside and now we're flagging out, we're going to break out? So that's what I'm looking for. If we just keep going down, then that's fine. That's fine. Let's just rip the band-aid off, A, B, and C, and get it over with, and get down to the 618, right? Right down in here, have a 618 retrace, and then what you have is what? A rise, a crash, a retrace. You come down for reaccumulation, you go sideways around the 618, then you break out. So very interesting price action here, right? One thing, the best wave is this one right here, right? And now we're sort of correcting in here. So if we can get this flat, we can break out. So this is not the time to be panicking. This is not the time to be selling. This is the time to be accumulating, right? Yes, we could have much more downside, right? But at the end of the day, we're positioning ourselves for the greater move, right? Not financial advice. I could be wrong. This could be going to zero. We don't know. But that's kind of my thoughts on that. So let's look at another chart. Let's look at, like, CRV did exactly what we thought it would do, which is what? Make a break this low here, right? You had this sort of rising wedge, and then you broke to the downside. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So maybe the C wave is basically finished. Let's see. Do we have any bullish divergence? Yeah, look at that. We have bullish divergence here between the 3rd and the 5th. That's what you want, right? I don't like the shape, though. I really don't. I don't like this. Like, it just seems a little bit out of proportion. And it's too close to the bottom of this. So it kind of gives me that descending triangle look that needs to break to the downside. But you know, on the face of it, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, C, A, B, C. Right? Does C need to come lower? Does C need to come lower? Right? That's what, you know, we're trying to figure out. And that's going to depend, you know, you got to take it wave by wave by wave. That's going to depend how this thing reacts once it's finished. And what I mean by that is, once this wave is finished, how does it react? Right? Look at this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like it's finished, just about. Now, if it is, let's see here. I don't think it's quite finished. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. And then I would say 1, 2. Or actually, this could be 4, 1. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I mean, we could have something like that. Let me look at the smaller time frames real quick. Yeah, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, just, I mean, you got a pretty big pop here. But I would expect, if it is going to go higher, I want to see it go sideways first. See, it needs to distance itself away from the scene of the crime. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you're going up, right, and you had a big crash, down, 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 down. Well, if the price is down here and it shoots up, chances are it's going to keep coming down, right? I mean, statistically, sometimes you get a V bottom, no problem. But a lot of times, people have gotten hurt in this wave. And it kills sentiment. And it makes people not want to buy. So what happens is, time needs to get away. Another week, another week, another week. Right now we're further away from the scene of the crime. We established a base, then we can go up. Right? Because people, you know, they get immune to the low prices. And then they start getting greedy again. And they buy. Right? Versus having complete fear, right? But a lot of times, too, when you have a big move down and then you pop to the upside, a lot of times you never come back to test that low. You get close to it, but then, you know, so sometimes people like to try to catch those bottoms. But anyways, let's keep looking forward here. I'm just trying to get a broad sense of what the market is doing, so I can help you guys. Yeah, so this is exactly what we talked about with the SHIB. Look at this. You see how it was kind of getting into this little rising wedge here, right? So we talked about A, this is your B, and then we should get C. We want a 3-wave shape, right? Once you get that 3-wave shape, then that's when technically that's a buy, right? So, yeah, so you have a 1, 2, 1. Let's get 2, and then we can go crazy, right? So that's what I'm thinking here for SHIB. Is it possible it's finished now? I mean, it is, but it just seems a little tiny. Look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe we get a three-way pullback, and you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would say something like A, B, C, A, B, C, right? I would much feel more comfortable if it was further down. I mean, look at this one, Synapse. I mean, it didn't really even flinch. I mean, there's your high right there, and you're barely. I mean, look at that. Look at that. You have a 1, ABC, 2. And then you have a 3, ABC, 4, 3, and then maybe 5. Maybe we just popped the high and that was it. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Problem is, though, here's the problem. When you zoom out a little bit, you have, it looks like you have this move here, right? And then you have 3 down, and then maybe 3 up. I don't know about that one. It seems like it should do something like that. But let's check another chart out. This is why we got a lot of charts to look at to give us a good sense. Okay, so Filecoin, you're like on a razor's edge here. Look at this. So ever since August, we've been in an uptrend. We've been up, 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 up. We've been holding the trend, right? Also, we've been going down as well. So typically what happens here is you have these mountains in here, right? Kind of like Head and Shoulders. So typically they break to the downside because you have all this liquidity down here. And the market makers, sometimes they'll push it up, they'll bring it right down here, and then they'll take it higher. I mean, it just seems like that's what they're trying to do here. Because I don't see a base with Filecoin. I need a base, right? We're stuck right in the middle here. I need it to either go down, which I think that's where it's going. It needs to come down, and then we can go back up. I mean, XLR, this could be a flat A, B, C, right? Let's get back down here, back test a little bit, and then go higher. 1, 2, 1, 2, maybe. Either that or we have, I mean, technically you could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is 3. So 3 up, 3 down. So A, B, C, right? And now we need something like this so that we can get something like that. Matic is dumping just like, and I was looking at Matic when we were in here and just said, look how bearish it looks. And it is. But I think this is the last wave to the downside for Matic. I think once this bottoms out for Matic, that's it, the low is in. And I'm saying that very strongly, guys. Once this is finished, the low will be in. So this could be a generational buy for Matic coming up. I'm not kidding. You could say, oh my God, it looks terrible. It does, but I think this is coming to the end. Look at this. You have 3 up and you have 3 down. That's what we were just talking about, like for any other chart, like real quick, theta, right? What do we just say? Same thing. 3 up, and then what do you get? 3 down, right? Just on a different time frame. And then you go. Okay, so is there any example? Kind of like right here, right? You have 3 up, right? And then you get 3 down, and then you go. So here's the complete chart. of Matic, right? And basically, here's your bull market, and you have this 3-wave move to the downside, right? Or you can say it's a triangle, right? 3 down, 3 up, 3 down, 3 up. But it doesn't really make sense as a triangle anymore because it broke this low. And if it was a triangle, it would be much bigger and more painful. For example, it would be like this. A, B, and then C, and then D, and then E, and then go. Right? So, but I don't think it's a triangle. I think it's too big. What I think is going on here is obviously we're just finishing up this 3-way move, and we're trying to draw in liquidity, right? I mean, if Bitcoin is cracking through the all-time highs, way up at 70K, and Matic hasn't even made a retracement yet, let alone challenge the all-time high, let alone challenge the swing high. I mean, we're actually challenging the lows here. So that tells me there's something wrong, obviously, with the altcoins as far as they're more fragile. But I think that is the end of their fragile state, because when Bitcoin is at its all-time high, once it finally breaks out, that's when the altcoins are obviously going to be bottomed out. But during its process of trying, because people don't know that Bitcoin's going to break out or not, so they're still in this fear trade, right? But I might consider getting some Matic here, because this is yes, it could go lower for sure, but I don't think I'm obviously we're gonna count the waves in here, and so far I only have really 3. 1, 2, 3. If we can get 4, if this has come up 4 and 5, I mean, that would be a great buy right around 30 cents or so. So we'll see. You know, if you look at Algorand, it's the same kind of thing. You know, we're sort of come down, we correct to the upside. It seems like it needs to have a 3-way move, right? So 3 up, and then we get 3 down, right? And then we can go higher. If we look at something like Dogecoin, I mean, it looks totally different. It looks way more bullish, right? It looks like we're flagging out in here, like versus when you look at something like XRP, right? I mean, totally different. That doesn't mean I'm going to buy Dogecoin. I still would like to see it come down, right? And build this range, oscillate in the range, right? I want to see Fetch. We're starting to get our 3-way move on Fetch. I want to see it a little bit further down here, because look how high we went here on Fetch, right? I mean, we started way down here. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you get a 5-way move, you need an A, B, and a C. And a lot of times that can go way deep down here at the 618 before going higher. So if that means we still have potential more downside. When we look at let's see, ICP here, same kind of thing. It looks a little better though, right? And remember, we looked at that XRP fractal the other day, how this came down, right? And then it came back up. So if this can flag out a little bit, we can break the high here, and this could be a nice inverse head and shoulders, right? But that doesn't mean we're free to go. It just means you see this big move here. All we would do is retrace it 50%, and then maybe go down later. So like an A, B, C, right? Because same thing with ICP, these little valleys in here, it just doesn't give me the feeling that it's finished yet. So dollar cost averaging is totally fine, right? Just because, like, let's say you dollar cost average, right, and then the price drops 5%, as long as it's a spot position and as long as you don't sell, you have to make a commitment every time you buy. Not financial advice, but when you buy, you have to make a commitment with yourself, right? Saying, it's okay if it comes down because it doesn't matter because I'm not going to sell it anyway. I'm not going to sell it until Bitcoin breaks 100K, right? And I'm not going to sell it until we have a real proper alt season. It might take, worst case scenario, it could take another year. It could take 2 years. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's coming up very soon, right? Remember, a lot of people are waiting for the election, and my theory on the election stands. Number one, they swap Kamala out. I don't think that's likely at this point. I mean, it could happen, but I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think what they're going to do is they're going to make it seem like it's a tight race, when in reality it's nowhere near tight. I mean, if you saw her CNN town hall, I mean, even CNN was grilling her because she didn't answer the questions. People don't trust her, but they want you to think it's razor thin. It's not. The reason why they want you to believe that is so that when Trump ultimately wins, there's going to have some type of Russian interference or some type of cyber attack, right? There's going to be a cyber attack of some sort on the election, right? And then the intelligence agencies are going to come out and say, we were hit last night. We were hit. I'm not saying it's going to happen on election day or even the day after the election, but a week after the election, right? Because what's going to happen is the election is going to happen and it looks like it's normal. And everyone says, oh, okay, see, nothing happened. Well, no. You got to wait a little bit. Wait a couple days after. Wait a week after, right? See what they do. Because they're not going to accept it, right? They're going to say something. They're going to fight. They have no choice. They got to, right? I mean, remember in 2020 when Trump, when they stole the election and Trump said, don't certify it, right? Because they rigged it, right? But ultimately there was a peaceful transfer of power. So basically, they're going to do the exact same thing to him, right? So what kind of excuse could they use? Well, I think a cyber attack. I think they're going to say there was election interference and that's why he won. Because the race, we saw the polls, right? They were razor thin all the way up. And she was actually winning in the beginning of the election, and then we had this big interference, and then he ultimately won because of it, right? And they're gonna try to contest it or something like that. Or what could happen is that they can print so many ballots that they're gonna just say, "Oh, she won," when in reality they just cheated. So number one, they swap Kamala out. Number two, there's a cyber attack on the election or some type of interference saying he cheated. Or number three, Kamala's going to win because they cheated as much as they possibly could. So, like, she would get like 100 million votes, which is insane. Like, that never, ever has happened before. And it's gonna look distorted. It's gonna be like, well, wait a minute, look at this county in Georgia. How could it be possible she got this many votes when there are not even that many people in the town, and half the people have Trump flags out? So how is that even possible, right? There's gonna be things that come out that don't make any sense at all, right? And they have no choice. They're gonna have to print the ballots. And they're going to have to, because what they do is they use dead people's social security numbers. What they do is if you don't vote, that's why I'm saying vote, please vote. I don't care who you vote for, just vote. because you need to use your social security number, because what they do is they take it. Remember that data breach we had months ago where they said, oh, 100 million people's data got exposed in a data leak. Well, you know why, right? Because they were trying to take the social security number so that they can use them in the election. I mean, that's a far big stretch. How dare you say that? It's a conspiracy, but I mean, think about it, right? So if somebody doesn't vote, if someone's not registered and they don't vote, what they can do is they can manually register them, or they don't even really have to. They just use your name and your driver's license. And why do you think they had the border open? Why do you think we have such a big border problem? They could have easily stopped it, but they didn't want to stop it. Why? Because they're making a deal with them. Look, you come in the border illegally, you vote, we'll give you a social, we'll give you everything, a driver's license, we'll give you a ballot, right? And then we promise to give you amnesty when it's all said and done, right? And then when Kamala gets the popular vote, they're going to say, oh, we need to get rid of the Electoral College because it's rigged. It's only, it's favoritism to white people. Like, how does that even make any sense, right? It doesn't, it's, I hate when they use identity politics. Like, at the end of the day, we're Americans. We all are the same, right? We have different cultures, different ethnicities, but we're all Americans at the end of the day. But they want to use the whole race thing as an emotional trigger for a lot of people, right? And they use that to control them, right? I mean, like this, I have this friend of mine, he goes, black people, they've been voting Democrat all their life, and where has it gotten them? And I say, well, yeah, but you can say the same for Republicans, right? White people, you could say, well, white people would vote for Republican. Look where it's gotten them, right? I mean, you know what I mean? And there's poor people in any category. What the biggest thing is not about who you vote for. It's about the system. And it all revolves around what? The financial system. And what is the linchpin to the financial system? It's what we look at every single day, right? So anyways, I think there's going to be some type of election chaos, and that could make markets worse. It could make them better. It just depends, right? So, if we're just waddling into the election and then panic happens, boom, we can just have a lights out moment, right? So I don't think that's the case. I don't think it'll be that dramatic, but, it is what it is, right? I mean, you look at something like Zcash, look at this. We had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we also had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, or you could say 3 down and then 3 up, right? We're right in the middle of retracement levels. So typically you go into reaccumulation or you flag out somewhat, right? And that could be right around that election time. I don't think it's going to rattle markets too much, but we'll see. But anyways, I think that'll do it for this video. Let's just look at the small time frames here real quick. I mean, look at the smaller time. Yeah, it looks like it's getting a little bit of a bottom here. At least local bottom. 1, 2. And then I would see 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 and 5. 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a little bit of a stretch. I really feel more comfortable. I mean, because look, we're right at support here, and we actually dipped our toes below. So I want to see how this. I feel like we're going to get a move back to the upside. That's what I feel is coming. The question is, how does it move back up? Does it move up impulsively, right? You see what I mean? So I'll let's, oh, we forgot, today's Friday, so the weekly close is coming up, and of course it had to get nasty right before the weekly candle ended. But you look at the last week's candle, we had a doji, right? And I can't believe I don't remember if I saw that. There was a doji right there. So typically, you know, you got to come back down. So the weekly candle looks okay. Let's look at theta, the weekly candle. That looks a little worse. But you know, we're starting to get, you know, I want to see price get back to the lows. I want to see the price get back to the lows and freak the market out. Oh, you know, we're not going to have a bull market. We're still in a bear market. Altcoins are dead. I want sentiment to get crushed. I want people's fear to rise, because that gets me bullish. That tells me when things are about to turn around. So, because so far, when you look at the shape of it, all we have is a little hump, right? We need it to come down and really fill it in. I mean, that's kind of on the face of it. So, the last line in the sand for theta would be right at $1.09. So as long, let me make sure I got that right. So as long as we're at $1.09, $1.08, we'll be all right. That's the level we definitely want to hold, or we threaten ourselves for breaking the low. Because look, remember Matic, right? Matic is down here, and now it's breaking to the Matic is right here. So if Matic is already here and theta is still up here, well, Matic doesn't have much more to go, and by the time it finishes, theta will probably have finished too, probably a little lower. So, or relative to where it is now. Alright guys, that'll do it for this video. Appreciate everybody, and if you can, hit that like, drop a comment, let me know what you think, and subscribe, because we want to see, you know, technical analysis is really a day-by-day operation, right? Things have a certain look, and once you get that wave, you always want to see how does the next wave react, right? And we analyze that next wave, and that gives us a clue about what the next wave is going to be, because it's always about positioning yourselves 2 waves ahead of where we are, right? So anyways, I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.